Jesus called 12 men as his disciples. Though many other people followed Jesus, those 12 were closer to him than any others. One of those 12 men stands out above the rest. His name is Peter. My name is Dave Chambers. I am the pastor of Manistique Bible Church. So who was the Apostle Peter? Now, Peter may be the most familiar person in the New Testament other than Jesus himself. Despite the widespread recognition of his name, little is actually known about him. The Bible tells us Peter worked alongside his brother Andrew as a fisherman on the Sea of Galilee. He was the son of a man named Jonah. At the time he met Jesus, Peter was married and living in Capernaum on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. John 1, verse 44 says that Peter was originally from the town of Bethsaida. Apparently, Peter was born and spent his early years in Bethsaida and later moved a few miles away to the city of Capernaum. The Bible also calls Peter by the name Simon and Cephas. Simon appears to have been his Jewish name, but when Jesus said to him, "You are Simon the son of Jonah, you shall be called Cephas," he began to be called by the new name Jesus gave him. Cephas is an Aramaic name which means the same as the Greek name Petros. Both words mean stone or rock. So Jesus changed Simon's name to Cephas, which when translated into Greek, which was the language spoken in the majority of the Roman Empire, it became Petros, which in English is Peter. Now, Peter seems to have been an impulsive man, quick to speak and quick to take risks. He is the only apostle that the Bible records as being publicly rebuked by both Jesus and another apostle. The boldness on the part of Peter is probably part of the reason he became the early leader of the apostles. After Jesus ascended to heaven, Peter took the lead and guided the early Christians to select someone to replace Judas as one of the 12. In Acts 2, Peter acted as the spokesman for the disciples and preached the gospel to the curious crowds in Jerusalem. Peter also held a privileged position among the disciples before the death of Jesus. He was one of 3 disciples, with James and John, who was permitted to be present when Jesus was transfigured. James, John, and Peter went with Jesus into the Garden of Gethsemane to be near him while he prayed. Peter is also the disciple who drew his sword and attempted to fight off the soldiers when they came to arrest Jesus. Peter was the author of 2 books of the Bible, 1st and 2nd Peter. He is believed to have had a hand in shaping the Gospel of Mark. Peter preached the first gospel sermon to the Jews in Jerusalem and the first gospel sermon to Gentiles outside Jerusalem. Peter's preaching the gospel to the Gentiles was a pivotal moment in his own life and in the history of the church. Prior to this, Peter was a conscientious and observant Jew who had never even eaten any unclean thing, and he was unwilling to do so, even though God had instructed him to. Possibly Peter is most well known for his association with Roman Catholicism. The Roman Catholic Church teaches Peter was bishop of the church in Rome and was the first pope. However, the Bible is silent about any trips Peter may have taken to Rome. The earliest church histories mention that Peter was killed in Rome at the command of Nero. However, no early church documents describe Peter as a bishop in Rome. So the absence of any biblical connection between Rome and Peter, and the absence of any early historical connections between Peter and the Roman Church makes it impossible for anyone to insist Peter would ever pastored in Rome. And for these same reasons, none can insist from the Bible or history that Peter was the first pope. Another major claim made about Peter is that he is the foundation of the New Testament church. Peter played an important role in its beginning. Through his preaching on the day of Pentecost, thousands of Jews were converted to Christianity and the first church was formed. Through his preaching in the house of Cornelius, the first Gentile church was formed. Peter's role in the church is of great importance, but the rock on which the church is built is Jesus himself. When Jesus said to Peter, "On this rock I will build my church," he was making a play on words that compared Peter, a stone, with the immovable boulder of Jesus' character. Instead of Peter being the foundation of the church, the truth about Jesus proclaimed by Peter, that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, that is the bedrock on which the church is built. Tradition says Peter was crucified in Rome for preaching the gospel, and that Peter requested to be crucified upside down because he was not worthy to die in the same manner as Jesus. We know little else about Peter's later life, except that he was a faithful disciple who served the Lord unto death. If you have more questions about the disciples of Jesus, the Bible, or Christianity, you can find answers at everlastingtruths.com. There you can also submit your questions or follow us on Facebook for more biblical answers to your questions.